This is Leaders in the Trenches, and your host today is Gene Hammett.
Hi, I'm your host. I'm Gene Hammett. I am the host of Leaders in the Trenches. Got a little tongue-tied there. My question for you today is, what are the core factors that drive the growth of your business? Have you really thought about it? Have you ever sat down and really knocked out or defined clearly what defines your growth? What are those core factors? Well, I do this all the time with the people I interview, and today I am honored to share with you the fourth fastest growing company, privately held, by the Inc. 5000, grew at 39,817%. Velocity Global is, someone who's really impressive. Ben Wright is the CEO there. We talked about the core factors of growth. We talked about the culture. We talked about, is it customer first or employee first? We talked about all of the things around that. You'll learn some very strategic things, but also some very tactical things that they're doing to actually create rituals inside their company to reinforce that growth. We talked about the importance of values, and really we talked about it from two different perspectives and why you want to be really clear about those, and you want your employees to be clear about the values of the company. Velocity Global is a company that helps companies that are trying to grow into new markets globally in other countries. They don't have a physical presence there, and they need to navigate around all of the legal issues of having that employee live in that country and do the work in that country. And so they have been doing this, and they've been growing at an astronomical rate. Very impressive. Fourth fastest privately held company in the Inc. 5000. So we talked today about this with Ben Wright. Hi, Ben. How are you?
Not bad. How about yourself?
I'm doing pretty good. It's good to have you here at Leaders in the Trenches. Everyone knows I'm fascinated with the fast growth of the Inc. 5000. You happen to be the fourth highest growth of 2018, which we're going to talk about today, some of the things behind that. But I'd love for you to tell our audience a little bit about you and who you serve at Velocity Global.
Absolutely. So Ben Wright, CEO and founder of a company called Velocity Global. We are the fourth fastest growing private company in the U.S., according to Inc. First-time entrepreneur, so just giving a run at this thing for a first try. Had some good success so far. What we do as a business is we help companies expand and employ people around the world. Really, the core offering, just in a nutshell, is if you're a company, you're looking to employ someone in a foreign market around the world, you don't have a local company by which to employ them yourself. We can employ them for you under our employment vehicles around the world. It's pretty simple.
Well, I'm impressed with the growth. Hopefully everyone else is. I'm going to say those numbers again. 39,817% over a 3-year period. That's based on revenue. And that level of growth has got to come with a certain amount of challenges and chaos, but there's also some things that you've probably learned around this. And I don't think I knew this, first-time entrepreneur. Like, now I'm even blown away even more.
Well, you ask if there's, certain things that you kind of learn along the way. Being a first-time entrepreneur, every day is a new learning. So I almost get goosebumps even when I hear you kind of talk about our growth. It seems a little surreal. We're blessed. We're blessed, and I attribute it all to the team that we have here, the group of people we have together. But it's a ton of learnings along the way, and we've just been really fortunate to get a lot of them right. That we've certainly had some missteps. We've been kind of blessed we haven't had any massive missteps along the way.
Well, I think that's just part of the journey, in my opinion. And if it was all easy, everyone would do it.
Sure.
You have about 100 employees, and I know it's probably growing fast, so that's probably a very dynamic number. I always ask fast-growing companies this one question, so I want to start off here.
Yep.
And I didn't tell you this, and I'm not sure if I even asked you this before in our pre-call, is it company first or employee first that really drives the business forward?
Employee first, no question.
Why?
Twofold. One, I believe companies are little more than the collection of the people who are involved in those organizations, right? So without a team, without the people actually doing the work, you don't really have a company. It just doesn't necessarily exist. Certainly, if you have a technology or investment vehicle, that could be different. But in a traditional business like ours, it's about the people. For me personally, and second of all, this is pretty most important, is I want to give our employees the best professional opportunity they ever have in their career. I'm not going to achieve it 100% of the time, but if I can get pretty darn close, I've achieved my goal. And so I want at some point everybody who works here to look back and say that time at Velocity Global, that was the best time I ever spent.
Well, I love it, and you're in good company because of the research. It's over 94% of fast-growing companies would say it's employee first. You're probably not surprised by that, right?
No, not surprised at all.
Now,
there's bad stories out there about people who don't do that. But
you work with a lot of corporate clients because some of the clients that you have are really big companies, right?
Yep.
Now, I'm not saying it's absolutely wrong, but it doesn't necessarily foster growth. But are they focused more on the customer, or are they focused on the employees?
It's a great question. I think they're all, I don't know if I can paint them all with the same brush,
Yeah.
to be honest. We have some large companies, large organizations that truly are focused on the company and not the employee. We work with some very large organizations that are truly employee forward. We work with some small organizations. We actually had to, we resigned from a small not-for-profit we were supporting because they really weren't people forward. It impacted our people, impacted some of their people, and we just thought we couldn't really make a difference. So I don't know if you can paint it all with the same brush.
Well, I appreciate the fact that you're willing to draw a line and say, if that's out of alignment with the way we run business, then that customer wasn't a good fit for you, right?
Yeah, we don't want your blood money.
Ben, let's talk a little bit about some of the key factors that have caused someone first-time entrepreneur to create a company that is growing at nearly 40,000% in 3 years. What's the first thing that comes to mind that I say, why are you growing so fast?
Why we're growing so fast is, it started with the vision. And the vision a little more than I just didn't want to create a lifestyle business. And all due respect to my friends and people out there who create these lifestyle businesses, they're amazing. It's not how I get passion. I want to go from 0 to 100. I want to work hard. I want to leave it all on the playing field, if you will. So it really started with that. But the real execution of it is just around, for us, hiring tens and then getting out of their way. So we always talk about, we only hire people here who are tens. We teach them the system. We get them up to speed in kind of what we do. And then we empower them and we kind of step out of their way and say, okay, now it's your turn, right? Go take this thing and bring on tens behind you.
So how do you find tens? Or do they find you?
Having the success that we've had and some of the growth and, the incredible job of our PR and branding team have led a lot of people to come apply. So that's been really helpful. And frankly, I hope this never changes. Our biggest challenge is sifting through, making sure we're finding the best of the best. It's no shortage of talent who come apply to us. But we have a very rigorous and personalized process that we followed in terms of interviewing and getting people on board with the organization that has been really successful.
Well, I know that's a challenge for a lot of companies. The war for talent is real. It's not getting easier. And one of the big factors behind that is culture fit.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything you can share with us, a way that you're ensuring that there's a culture fit in that hiring process?
For sure. So we tend to focus less on previous experience. As a matter of fact, we may screen out people when we first see the resumes based on whether at least they have a basic experience in terms of the job that we're looking for. But that's about it. We don't necessarily go back to specific experience at any point in the interview process. The rest of it around how driven are you, how much, how passionate are you about what you do, how are you from a cultural fit perspective, how much is there alignment around what you're proud about and what those previous jobs were about? Is there alignment between what you rank yourself and what your previous bosses rank you? And that's all really important stuff. And, again, it's less about experience, more about real cultural fit.
So this reminds me of the old adage of hiring on attitude versus a skill set.
Yeah.
And I guess you guys have looked at the traits of the attitude of our culture and go, how do we mimic that through driven, passionate, and alignment? Any more to add to that, or Ben?
Yeah, certain things we look for. We look for people who are selfless,
Okay.
completely self-absorbed. If you only really kind of care about yourself and where you're taking this thing, you're not going to be a good fit here at Velocity Global. One of our key values is being of service, and so we look for that significantly. We look for people who really kind of go out of their way to be useful to other people. We look for people who are confident, but have a significant level of humility. That plays really well here at Velocity Global. And we look for people who at least have a sense of where they want to go, right? It is easier for someone in their 30s or 40s or 50s to kind of be able to say, this is where I'm going to go, somebody who's kind of just out of school. But those people who at least have a basic understanding of what that north is for them, we find that works really well because then we can align.
Well, you mentioned something I'm going to go back to, hire tens and then get out of their way.
Yep.
I understand what that means because I talked to a lot of people in there, but you got a listener in here going, how do I get out of the way so that these people can actually do their work? What do you mean by get out of their way, and then how do you actually do it?
What I mean by get out of their way is one of our other values is empowerment, and it's empowerment with accountability. And so what we do is we set goals on a quarterly, semi-annual, and annual basis. And those are the big picture items that we need to drive towards. And we say, well, let's work together to come up with what you need to do to get this done. And then I'm going to let you empower you to kind of get there the best way that you see fit. Because there's tons of learnings in there. If you get it right, fantastic. If you don't kind of get it exactly right, it's going to help you in the organization the next time around. And then we just do the basic, if something gets too far off course, if there's a really material distraction off of what our ultimate goal is, we'll step in, but otherwise we really let people go. A real life example is I actually took 2 months off this summer. So I took a sabbatical from work.
That sounds like a lifestyle choice there, Ben.
So true, and it's so funny you say that. So my wife had a sabbatical, 8 weeks, and we were planning on taking the whole family. And over the winter, I was just going to work from Europe. And I was thinking about this empowerment. And I realized what a cool way to empower our entire team, but in particular my senior team. What if I take those 8 weeks off too? And so I broke the news to them early in the year, and we prepped for it and we got ready. And so for literally 2 months over the summer, which is not a huge amount of time, but for 2 months over the summer, they literally took over. I had email off my phone, I had Slack off my phone. And the whole point of it was to get them, to show them they can do this. They can trust themselves. And I can tell you, there's quite a few people kind of coming out of the summer who are positioned to take that next step in their career. And it wasn't all perfect. There's some things they can learn from, but that's exactly what you're looking for.
That is a common story I hear with companies that create employees. They have a very important culture where people think for themselves. Being a servant leader, I find that some people kind of misunderstand that. They really want to, when a problem is presented, they want to solve the problem. They think they're being of service by solving the problem. Have you had many experiences with that? Like when people come to you with that problem, like what do you ask them instead of telling them the answer?
No question. We try to play the tape out, right? So let's think about the different scenarios. You're showing us, think about the different scenarios as we look forward as to how this may play out. And so a lot of times that will kind of help clarify the situation. But I don't think you should be afraid, and I can tell you that I'm not afraid of letting people, as long as it's not, again, a material departure of where we're headed, I have no problems with letting people kind of run down a path that I don't necessarily think is right or make that same decision. Because one way or the other, we're going to learn. We're either going to learn that, okay, we talked about this and you decided you want to move forward on this way and it didn't work and here's why. Great learnings for that individual. Or, the other side is true as well. It works out fantastic, way better than I thought it would have. It's incredible learnings for me as a leader to say, yep, okay, got it. I don't know all the answers.
Well, I'm curious of any kind of rituals that you guys have, whether it's your communication rhythm or the way you guys recognize or reward people, or anything else that you would consider to be a ritual that reinforces the growth of the company and the culture. What comes to mind?
So there's quite a few things that really we do here. One of which, and I think the first that comes to mind is we have a peer spot bonus program. And so if you identify somebody in the organization who you see living our values, velocity, empowerment, professionalism, integrity, service, at any point, you just send me a note. And then I recognize that individual across the entire company. It comes with a spot bonus, and it's a really cool way on a peer-to-peer basis to see people who are really living our values. And what I can share with you is a lot of them have to do with all of our values, but in particular, it's moving with velocity, and it's service, and it's empowerment. And so a lot of examples of people saying, hey, that person, they just picked up the ball, they ran with it, and we are all so much better because of it. So that's really kind of one of our main rituals.
Now, you keep coming back to the values, and I know a lot of companies have values, and they put them on the walls, and that's about where they last, right? That you begin to ignore them if that's all that you do with your values. What are you doing to actually reinforce the values other than this spot bonus?
So I talk about them all the time.
Okay.
In fact, I've got a colleague sitting across the table from me here who's nodding her head and saying, yep, you talk about them all the time. Part of it is because as an employee, and again, before starting Velocity Global, I've always been an employee of an organization. I never knew them. I forgot about them. I said, yeah, we're not going to pay attention to those things. And I thought, in some cases, and in most, I don't think this is true, but in some cases, companies really went to lengths to try to come up with the values that are important to them, but they just never reinforced them and never talked about them. So tying our peer spot bonuses to those values is huge. We're probably going to have an announcement later this year, which I can't share on here, but something around organization-wide living our values. We start most presentations internally with the slide, hey, just quick reminder, here's our values, this is what this is about. When things are going really well, we tie them back to our values. When things aren't going quite as well, it's typically value related and say, hey, this wasn't totally living our values. This is why. Here's how we like to kind of see it change.
So what would you say to a leader who's like, I understand the value thing, and I get that it's important, but we're just so busy executing. We're busy doing the work. Do I need to really take the time to get clear on the values for my company to have what we've been talking earlier, Ben, is a growth culture?
Yep.
What would you say to that leader?
I've been involved in a lot of those organizations. We've just been too busy. Just been too busy to be able to focus on it and talk about it, and it's understandable. For us, one of the reasons why we do it as well is tying everything back to those values allows you to have, again, both be positive and the critical conversation with individuals. And it's what allows people to say, hey, listen, this behavior, this action really wasn't totally in line. And let me draw this back to this particular value, and this is why. And this is why it's important to us in this organization. And it takes all the smokiness or the nebulous nature of interactions or whatever it happens to be out of the equation and say, no, this is specifically how it ties back. And I've just personally found it has made it so much more objective in terms of when you're working with people, both positive and, critical reinforcement on some of those things that aren't exactly right.
I love the fact that you talk about the critical reinforcement and the importance of that, because, most of the problems can be solved by just going back to look at the values. What values are in conflict here? Right? Whatever they may, being of service, empowerment. Well, I knew what to do, but I didn't do it. Like, oh, okay. you see it for yourself. As we begin to land this plane, Ben, I am curious. Do you work with coaches? Do you work with executive leaderships inside this? Is this something you've valued in that journey you've had?
No question. A part of the impetus for starting this company in the first place was working with a coach. I was struggling with I just kept hitting my head against the ceiling of this organization I was in. I felt like I had a lot to offer. Either they didn't or the culture just wasn't, one of promotion type of culture. I was really struggling with that. I was kind of struggling with some areas around our values and working with a coach. She helped me for the very first time define what it is I want to be when I grow up. And it's, it wasn't a title, it wasn't a compensation, it wasn't anything like that. It was what I wanted to be known for and what my true values were. Coming out of that, it became so completely clear about this is why I want to start this organization, Velocity Global. We still do work with coaches around here. I still work with coaches. I have personal mentors. I have professional coaches. We have people involved in the organization who come in and work with some of our leaders as well. I think constantly trying to get better is a really important part.
Now, if you're listening in, let me remind you, we're talking to Ben with Velocity Global, who grew at 39,817% and still sees the value in working on himself, investing in his team. And this is not a commercial at all. It's just like, I had someone come back to me. It's like, I'd never hire a coach. We know our industry better than anyone else. And I had a tough time, responding back to this. I didn't want to be defensive because that's what I do day in and day out. But I just responded as, coaching got me through some really tough inflection points in my life. And if I didn't have that, I don't know where I'd be right now. And that's the reason I became a coach. So I'm glad that you see the value there. I didn't know where that would go. It could have been like, coaches are, gurus and shallow, medicine men and all that stuff. But I appreciate you sharing with me about your journey of growth. Just recapping a few things here. We didn't go much into this, but you start with vision, you hire 10s, and you get out of their way. And then you took a 2-month vacation.
I
Okay.
love it out for being a lifestyle business.
I know there's a lot of work in between there, but I can really appreciate that. I think other people can listening in here. So I really appreciate you being here. I'd love for our audience to follow up with you. Where could they go to, Ben, if they wanted to get more information?
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me. So www.velocityglobal.com is the web address. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Twitter. There's a couple of great places to be able to reach out.
Well, Ben, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. Great podcast.
Fantastic. Love to have these kind of conversations. I got a page full of notes here, things that will really feed it into the work I'm doing, the speeches, and also the book that I'm writing on growth culture. Don't have a specific title yet. But that's the working title right now. And we're putting all this because we want to organize all of these interviews for you. So, I don't have any kind of link. I haven't even started writing the book yet. I've just been really thinking about it, developing an outline that will really serve you and doing, hundreds of interviews like this to help you understand how to create a culture of growth. And that really will help you, really be clear about your growth factors for your business. All right. And my name is Gene Hammett. I help companies that are in fast growth or to achieve fast growth to understand that chaos and leverage it to create a leadership and culture that's a competitive advantage. So if you have any questions for me, you have any insights, please make sure you reach out. I'd love to get to know you. As always, lead with courage, and I'll see you next time.